Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So I have not been keeping up with my monthly reading wrap-up videos. I think the last one I posted was for May. I've been quite busy this summer with a hectic play schedule and also like other videos that I wanted to get out, prioritizing them more. But now my schedule is freeing up a bit and I have more time to do other things such as make this video and catch you all up on what I've been reading from June to August of this year. If you enjoyed this video, then please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel. Thank you, and now let's get into it. So let's start off with everything that I read in June. Well, June was Pride Month, and as a member of the Rainbow Cult myself, of course, I wanted to primarily read queer books during the month. Up first is The First to Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This is the prequel to They Both Die at the End. This tells a story about two boys and their one-day love affair when one of them receives a phone call from the brand new Deathcast service telling him that he'll die that day. And so, they make the most of their one day together, live life to the fullest and all that. I, unfortunately and tragically and disappointingly DNF'd this book. I did not finish it. I That makes me so sad because I really wanted to love this book because the first one was one of my favorites last year, but I just couldn't finish this one. Honestly, I was a bit scared when I heard the announcement for this book because I didn't think the original needed any sequel or prequel or spin-off or anything, and sad to say, but I was right in that regard. The story just felt unneeded, like there is no point in it existing. This one tries to expand the lore about the Deathcast service, the company where they'll phone you up and be like, "Hey, bestie, sorry to tell you, but you're gonna die at some point today. We don't know when, we don't know how, we don't know why, but yeah, enjoy your last day on Earth. Bye. Okay, thanks for living." But it tries to expand on the lore about Deathcast and when the company was first launched and such, but I don't care. I don't care about the company. I don't. I know people that didn't like the first one often complained about, oh, how can a company predict the day a person will die? But the magic behind it was never something important to the first story. It was just a way to start the plot and get the ball rolling on what the story and themes were actually about. And the people that wanted some answers about Deathcast aren't going to read this, and I'm sure quite a few fans of the original that were excited about this are in the same boat as me that we don't care about the lore behind the company. That's not why the first book became so popular and loved. And then the love story between the two boys just felt like a rehash of the first book. Two strangers that are boys meet, they fall into insta love, they help each other grow as people, and then one or both die at the end. I'm not gonna spoil this one, but one or both die at the end. Oops. Different characters and events, but overall, it just felt too similar to the last one to hold my interest. I'm sorry. If I never read the first one, I probably would have really liked this one, but I did read the first one and I loved it, and this just felt like a rehash, so sucks to say, but I DNF'd it. The first book will always be special to me, but this one is just my biggest disappointment of the year, sadly. And I wrote that line in June, and honestly, it still holds up even a few months later, which it probably is going to hold up for the rest of the year, honestly. Anyway, moving right along. Next, the second book that I read in June is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This is about a woman who moves to New York and meets this hot lady on the subway. The subway girl turns out to be displaced from the 1970s and stuck on the train, unchanging, unaging, and without remembering what her life was like before she got stuck. Our main character decides to help Subway Girl figure out how to break her curse, and along the way, the two fall in love. I gave this a 5 out of 5. This was a favorite of the year. It really is. I loved this book. Casey McQuiston is a parent in the making for me. I loved Red, White, and Royal Blue like all the other basic gay bitches, so I wanted to read another book by the author, and this is also one of my favorites of the year. I love it so much. I'm gonna go so far as to say that I think that One Last Stop is actually better than Red, White, and Royal Blue in pretty much every way. The characters in general felt more fleshed out in this book, but especially the love interest and supporting cast actually felt like they had their own lives and things going on instead of just like love interest to main character and, friend to main character. Like, it didn't felt like everyone else in the book kind of just like revolved around August. It felt like, everyone else kind of had their own stuff in life and, things going on before August even entered the picture. So I really really love that. There were more side plots that made the world feel deeper and more lived in, and August and Jane, the main character and the main love interest, felt much more proactive in moving the plot forward and fighting for their love. Overall, I absolutely loved this book and the characters so much. And I honestly feel like there could be room for a sequel, even if it was just a novella. I think I'll read McQuiston's third book at some point later this year, because, hey, they wrote two books that I love. Let's try to go for three. The third book for June was Star Wars Resistance Reborn by Rebecca Roanhorse. I'm sorry if I pronounced that last name wrong. This is an adult sci fi novel about the Resistance being reborn. Yes, I had to make that joke. Taking place a few days after The Last Jedi, we follow Leia, Poe, and the rest of the Resistance as they try to rebuild the number of allies that they have and ships and, find a place to establish a base of operations. It's broken up into five interconnected storylines, with Poe and Finn attempting to obtain a list of First Order prisoners, Leia trying to find a base, members of Inferno Squadron trying to get ships for the Resistance from Braca, Wedge Antilles and his family trying to find allies for the Resistance, and a First Order officer delving into madness as his workers commit treason. I gave this a 4 out of 5. Now, personally, I had fun with this one. The sequels are my era. That is my trilogy. I claim it, so I am always excited to get new stuff about that era, and especially those characters. I found the not quite beginning but not quite midsection, if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. I don't know how else to describe it, but like that section where like we've already introduced everyone mostly, but we're not quite at the middle section yet. I found that section to be like a bit boring because I wasn't really seeing the full picture and didn't really care about like the Wedge or Officer Brat plot lines when they were first starting to find their footing. Like I just wanted to get back to like Poe and Leia and such. However, when everything got going and the pieces started coming together, I really enjoyed following every group of people on their missions. The Inferno Squad plus New Recruits group was entertaining to watch them bicker. I came to love the family aspect of the Wedge centered plotline. The Finn and Poe plotline gave me everything my little shipping heart wanted out of the two of them. Speaking on that for just a moment, I want to highlight just how much I loved their moments of bonding, like Finn navigating what the galaxy has to offer after being denied everything his entire life, and Poe being there to support and help him with things, like even just small things, like Poe showing Finn how to like tie a tie for the first time, and like such, like my little Finn Poe ship crumbs, and I'm so happy about that. I got my little shipping crumbs. I loved it. I was happy about it. Thank you. I also really liked that Rose was included and not just written out of the story like she was in Rise of Skywalker. Like, she didn't do much, but I could tell that the author was trying their hardest to include Rose in the story, and I appreciated that because she does deserve more story in general. Like, I'm sorry, I like Rose. She deserves better. I would have liked to have seen Rey more, though. I felt like she was very underutilized and also acted out of character. Like, Rey pretty much just stood in the corner of a room and, like, was shy the whole time when I never got that impression of her from the movies. In the movies, like, she's always confident, outgoing, determined, etc. Like, yes, she has her insecurities, but she never lets them, like, hold her back. But here, she just wasn't. I don't know. It felt like the author didn't really know what to do with Rey, but knew like she had to be involved somehow because she's the star of the sequels. Also, side note, I read this on audio and I just have to say I really love the way that the narrator did the voice for Officer Brad, the First Order officer we follow for part of the story. Cause yes, he has a stick up his ass like every other First Order Imperial person, but the narrator makes him so freaking sassy. Instead of like the usual stone coldness of other officials. And I love the sassiness. Like, whenever this one employee that Officer Brad hates was brought up, the narrator would say her name in a way where I could just see, like, the diva head shaking movement when he would go, like, Yama! Where are you, Yama? Like, I loved it. That was just a little side note about the narration. Like, the narrator was very, very good, and the narrator, like, took so many moments where like you could tell that he was having fun with it. I loved it. This was just such a fun read. I really really did enjoy it. And the fourth book from June was Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. This is an adult romance novel. The son of a famous rocker, Luke, needs to clean up his messy public image by getting a nice, respectable boyfriend, while a nice, respectable man, Oliver, needs a date to social gatherings for the next few months. So they decide to get into a fake dating situationship, but before long, fake feelings turn into real feelings, and now they gotta navigate that. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. What can I say? I'm becoming a slut for cutesy romance books, especially if they're queer. This book is fun, it's unserious, it's a little camp, and I had a fun time reading it. Is it the best written book ever? No, absolutely not. If you're looking for quality literature, this is not the book for you. The entire fame element didn't really make sense because, in one breath, the book talks about Luke being followed by paparazzi, but then in like the next breath, it wants to emphasize that he's like an E-list nobody and his rocker parents are like C-listers at best. So I think it would have been better to just like make Luke like a B-list actor or singer or something. So it makes sense why he needs to go on this like cleaning up your public image campaign. But then he's also like not too famous, so you can just have private moments between him and Oliver while out in public without having to worry about like swarms of fans or media. You know, like him being a B-lister in the middle, best of both worlds, it would have, solved that element for me. And the characters, I will admit, do act a bit immature for their ages. Like, they're all about mid to late 20s, approaching 30, but they all feel early 20s, you know? However, having said all that, if you're just looking for a fun time with a cute couple to ship and some fun banter between friend groups, go read this book. The various friends were so enjoyable. I loved the dynamic between Luke and Oliver. This is the only time I approve of the I can fix him slash he's fixing me trope. I loved the vulnerable moments with our leads and how the author truly dissected their fears and insecurities within themselves and why relationships have not worked for either of them in the past. And I like the fucked up family dynamics they both have going on, especially with Luke's dad just abandoning the family when he was a kid, and then decades later when he wants to like randomly show back up and play dad of the year. And then Luke tells him repeatedly to like fuck off and literally die. Like, I felt that on a personal level. Left his mom though. His mom is an icon. I also just liked Oliver's character in general of like a man who seemingly has everything and his life is like so put together on the outside, but then is actually dealing with a lot of self-loathing, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and body image issues on the inside. Okay, wait. Let me read to y'all what I have in my script because I did read the sequel in August. So let me just read to y'all what I have in my script, and then we can address this when we get to the sequel later on in this video. Like, that was genuinely interesting to me, and I hope we can delve even deeper into all that and how his family plays a huge role in the next book. We'll get to that. We'll get to that later. But yeah, is it the best written book? No, it has quite a few flaws. But did I have a blast while reading this one? Absolutely. I really, really loved it. Alrighty, now we move on to what I read in July, aka my birth month. So, the first book that I read in July is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This new adult fantasy is the first book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. It's about a girl who kills a fairy and is then made to like pay a life debt by going to the fairy world and living in luxury with a hot rich man to keep her company. Okay. Okay. Maybe I need to go kill a fairy too. Like that would be nice. After bumming around in Fairy World for a while, she finds out about this magical disease that is draining the magic out of the world and killing people, and she takes up arms to like break the curse before it can spread to the mortal world. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. Well, I was curious about the series because it's both famous and infamous, so I decided to pick it up at my library. And I thought it was fine. Nothing too great, but nothing horrible either. Like, it was just fine. It just felt kind of standard. I don't know. The plot was nothing amazing, but it entertained me, and if you're looking for a Beauty and the Beast retelling, then check this out. Most of the characters were nothing to write home about, but, they served their purpose, and there were a few standouts. And the world felt empty, but like there's 4 books in this series so far, with a novella and like 2 more future books, I think. So I'm sure the world gets more fleshed out in the other books. At least I hope so. I don't know. I really like the character Alice and want more of her in the next book. Nesta was kind of cool in the later part of the book, but I hated her at the start. And I'm sorry, but Amarantha was so iconic. I'm a sucker for like the evil dark queen type of character, and Amarantha absolutely served. And I'm so sad that spoiler, but the book's been out for years. But spoiler, I'm so sad that Amarantha got killed because I was so hoping she was going to be the next like the big bad that we're fighting in the whole series. Like, I would have gladly signed up and instantly, like, been like, okay, we're reading this whole series if, like, Amarantha had been, the big bad of the whole trilogy. Like, I would not be hesitating to read the next few books if that was the case. But unfortunately, she gets killed in this one, so aw. As for Feyre, first of all, I wanted her to just, like, kill her family in the first few chapters because they were so disgustingly rude to her. Like, how are y'all gonna place all the responsibilities of the household onto the youngest person in the family and make her like the sole breadwinner? Because the rest of y'all are too damn lazy to go get jobs and help around the house. And then complain. And then complain and call her all kinds of names and say how horrible of a person she is and this, that, and the third. Like, girl, when Feyre was in Fairy World crying about, oh my god, I miss my family and I made a promise to take care of them when our mother died. Like, my mother made me promise to take care of them. Oh my god. I was like, girl, fuck your family. Let them starve to death. It's what they deserve. It's what their ungrateful asses deserve. Come on now. Now, granted, I did like them when she was sent home and we saw them again in the lap of luxury, but still, you know. Also, it is interesting that they were so like horrible and mean and evil and spiteful when they were in poverty, but then the moment that they miraculously get famous and are able to be rich again, they become nice people again. That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, no. One thing I did really like, though, is how painting was a hobby for Feyre, and it was actually something that she carried with her and did all throughout the book. I know that's a low bar, but there are plenty of times when authors will give their main character a hobby of some sort at the start of the book and be like, oh my god, this hobby is so important to this character. And then we just never see them do that hobby ever again. But with Farah, we actually did see her paint a lot and think about painting and how she would paint things all throughout the book. So I really did like that. You know, it's a low bar, but it was a nice touch. One thing I'm just confused on is how the hell does Farah fall in love with Rhysand? And we're all supposed to hate Tamlin later in the series. Cause I'm sorry, but just based on this novel alone, Tamlin is not perfect by any means, but he has far less red flags than a lot of fantasy love interest, especially compared to Rhysand. Rhysand literally drugged, used, manipulated, and sexually assaulted Feyre. Like, there is no way in hell you can make me believe him and her are supposed to be like soulmates later in the series. I'm just so confused on that. Also, I felt like this book was just so long. I read this on audio, so I don't know how long this is in page numbers, but it felt like you could remove like 200 pages from this book and it would work fine. Like, for most of the first half, Feyre is just wandering around Fairy World, bickering with her housemates and discovering magical creatures that want to eat her. Like, huh? I feel like it would have been more interesting if Feyre had found out about the true nature of the curse much earlier, and then we worked from there, as opposed to her finding out about everything 75% of the way in, and then the plot suddenly kicking into high gear. I don't know. What do I know? The book has sold millions of copies, so obviously Sarah J. Maas is doing something right. Will I continue with this series? I don't know just yet. It was alright and easy to listen to. I was here for what was going on, and I'm kind of interested in, how the love triangle drastically shifts, and, how her sisters also become immortals later in the series. So, I might pick up the next one in, a few months or so, or, next year or something. I don't know. Also in July, I finished A Reaper at the Gates by Sabater. This is the third book in the Ember in the Ashes new adult fantasy series, and it's basically just our three main characters, Leia, Ellis, and Helene, suffering the entire time. Leia is trying to figure out how to stop the mythical evil Dark Lord known as the Nightbringer from destroying the world, while also being made into a symbol of hope for her people to stand against systematic oppression. Ellis has become the Grim Reaper basically and is struggling to figure out how to do his job properly because obtaining the magic needed to help spirits pass onto the afterlife means giving up the last bit of humanity he has left, and he really doesn't want to do that. And Helene is going through hell trying to run an empire, win a war, and stop an upcoming coup and keeping her sisters safe from the hellish emperor. I gave this a 5 out of 5 and I marked it as a favorite. Which, are we surprised? I gave that same rating to the first two in the series, and I'm probably going to give that to the last book in the series, but yeah, I loved it. I love this series so much. What can I say? Saboteur Saboteur is becoming a mother to me. Oh my god, Saboteur is literally becoming a mother to me. I cannot talk enough about the Ember series. Like, they are such beautifully crafted books in every way, from the plot to the characters to the world to the lore. Like, you can just tell time and thought was put into every single one of these books. I am going to say that this is 450 pages of our three leads experiencing trauma and flopping at their jobs, but when are they not going through hell? Like, when are they not going through hell, you know? Let's talk a little about each of them. First of all, Leia is how you write an unwilling hero. A lot of authors want to try and have an unwilling leader like Katniss Everdeen, but they don't really know how to do it, so it just comes off as silly. Like, oh my god, I really don't want to lead anyone, but also, like, give me a sword and a shield and let me rally my people. Like, it's like, be so serious. But Saboteur is the only person I've seen since reading Hunger Games that actually understands how to craft an unwilling leader. I'm sure that there are other authors who know how to do it also, but just in my reading experience out of the books that I've read, Saboteur is the only one that I've read in a few years who's been able to actually craft an unwilling leader. Because Leia has become a symbol for revolution within the scholar community after blowing up Blackcliff Academy, staging a prison break against Koff Prison, and now freeing prison camps across the country. So, in this book, she is being expected to be a revolutionist and lead the charge for her people to fight against the brutal oppression that they experience. But the thing is, she doesn't want to be a leader. She doesn't really know how to do that. She literally just does what she feels is right and stands against tyranny however she can, which leads to heroic acts. Ugh, I love it. Someone that doesn't have an interest in heroics or glory, but just wants to be a good person and stand up for what's right, and that's why she's made into a symbol of hope. Like, oh my god, very nice. Even in her fight against the Nightbringer, that's true. Next, Helene. I am so glad that the author gave us Helene's POV starting from the second book, because not only is Helene an extremely interesting character to follow, but she also provides a fresh perspective on the world that Leia and Ellis can't do no matter what. AKA a look into the Martial Empire's elite class and why some people actually do love the Empire. I love all of the political drama between her and the commandment fighting for the throne like they're playing a game of chess. Spying, assassination attempts, deception, covering up tracks. It's all just so interesting watching the two of them make moves against each other and get both wins and losses back and forth. Also, thank God Marcus finally died. I have hated that bastard since the first book and wanted him dead since he first became emperor, and he finally got killed in battle in this one, which I am so thrilled about. Like, bye bitch, bye. And as for Ellis, girl, he was such a flop in this one. Oh my god. When the spirits just kept piling up in the waiting place and then eventually broke free and started wreaking havoc on the world, I was just like, oop, that's what you get for being more worried about your girlfriend than learning how to be a good Grim Reaper. Yep, now look at what you've done. Oops. Now you gotta go clean that up. And I'm kind of hoping in the final book we get some more info on, the god Moth. Because I know he's basically like God and basically takes over the Grim Reaper apprentice so they can, become the Soul Catcher. But I don't know, something seems off about Moth, especially with how he wouldn't give Ellis the magic needed to become Soul Catcher until he gave up all sense of humanity and just became an unfeeling shell of, just a void, like a human vessel, basically. But I am so excited to read the final book in the series because, the villains have won. The girlies are in an unsteady allyship to stop the Nightbringer and the Commandment, and the boy is checked out from everything going on. Pretty much. So, how are we gonna save the world and stop the upcoming genocides against everyone outside the Martial Empire? I'm kind of curious. How are we gonna save the day here? I don't know. I'm very excited to read it in the coming months, but I will just say, question. Why was Helene dropped from the cover on the fourth book? I want some answers about that, because I thought that meant she was going to die in this one, but no, she's more important than ever, so why did we just go back to Leia and Ellis being on the cover? Explain. Explain yourself, cover designer. Explain. Anyway, the next book that I read in July was The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. This is a young adult fantasy and the third and final book in the Cruel Prince / Folk of the Air trilogy. Following the events of the second book, our main character Jude is the exiled Queen of Fairy and must fight to regain her place in the kingdom. With war on the horizon against her treasonous father, all of her skills in battle and deceit will be tested as she fights for the throne and the future of the kingdom. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed this. It was an alright conclusion for an alright series. I like the plot. I like seeing Jude truly lead the kingdom finally instead of like having to hide behind someone else. I liked seeing her go undercover behind enemy lines and finally act like an actual spy. It was, it was just a fine book. I honestly would have liked if this had been longer, actually, because I did feel as though it was kind of short. Like everything kind of just wrapped up pretty quickly, honestly. So I honestly wouldn't have been, too mad if there was like another 100, 200 pages or so. I don't know. I don't know. I read this on audiobook, so it was only about 9 hours. But, if the audiobook had been about like, let's say like 11, 12 hours, I think that would have been great. I also don't really ship any of the main ships in this series. Sorry. AKA Jude with Cardin or Vivi with Heather, because both ships are just so toxic and unhealthy. I'm sorry, they are, and I don't support them. On the one side, with like Jude and Cardin, you've got lies, deception, manipulation, controlling, and low-key attempted murder. And then on the other side, with Vivi and Heather, you've got like even more lies and deception, plus memory wiping, and it's just, ugh, messy. Nope, not here for any of it. Nope, none of the ships I can support. I don't really like any of them. But overall, I did enjoy my time with the Cruel Prince series, and if I had to rank the books, I'd probably say the second book is the best, followed by this one, and then last and certainly the least is the first one. Like, I'm so sorry, the first one is just not good. The second and the third book kind of slay, but the first book, no, no, it's not good. Anyway, I'll probably read the spin-off Stolen Heir duology at some point, but I'm not exactly sure when that'll be. Like, maybe I'll read the first one early next year, like right before the second book comes out. I don't know. Also in July, I read Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I'm sorry if I pronounced that last name incorrectly, but yeah. This is the first book in the fantasy middle grade Percy Jackson series. It's about this boy named Percy who discovers he's the son of the Greek god Poseidon and is soon after like accused by the gods of stealing precious objects from them. He then goes on a road trip across the United States with his two new friends to find the stolen objects and prove his innocence, facing off against mythological threats along the way. And he starts to discover a plot to destroy Mount Olympus and the gods, which sets up the rest of the series. Y'all are gonna hate me for this, but I gave this a 1 out of 5 stars. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Like, don't shoot me. Don't send me to the electric chair. I'm begging. Don't put me in front of the firing squad. But like, yeah, I gave this a 1 out of 5 stars. Sorry. Hold on, let me explain first. Okay, so first off, I don't have nostalgia for this series. I don't. I never read this as a kid. Okay, so I'm going into this as a 22-year-old adult. So maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe y'all have a lot more nostalgia for this series, which makes it so beloved for y'all. But like, I don't have that nostalgia, so I'm just basing it based off of how I read it just now. Okay. I checked this out from my library because I've always heard people say that this is a childhood classic for like any early 2000s kids. So I was curious, like, what the fuss was all about. And no, I don't understand the hype around this whatsoever. And yes, this will be a lengthy rant. But before we get negative, can I just say I find it so funny that no matter how you make a story about the Greek gods, like no matter the universe, no matter the mythos, no matter what changes you make to the Greek god lore, they are always going to be a bunch of sluts. Cause like what do you mean these gods keep having so many kids that we had to build a whole ass summer camp to group all of their adolescent children together in one place? Also, question, but like what happens to the adult children of the gods when they get too old for Camp Half-Blood? Like, are they just thrown out into the world and told, like, best of luck, bestie, have fun battling the monsters that are gonna forever hunt you down? After being, like, informed about all the creatures that are gonna hunt them down for the rest of their lives? Like, what happens to the adult children after they get too old for this place? I'm so curious. Anyway, let's get negative. I hated it. I thought it was boring, was trying way too hard to be funny, and was actually problematic at parts. The best summary that I can give this book, though, is that it read like Greek god self insert fanfiction. And on the one hand, I get it, because this is for middle schoolers and they all want to be like the main character of the universe. I mean, I wrote my fair share of self insert fanfiction for the stuff I was into at the time, so like, I get it. But, like, at the same time, that doesn't make it good whatsoever. Sorry. Oh my god, Percy literally feels like someone's self-insert, because not only is he, like, a child of a Greek god, but he's a child of, like, one of the top 3 most powerful Greek gods ever. And not only that, but he's also the first child born from any of those top 3 gods in generations, just making him even more special and unique and different and not like the other Greek childs. And people keep talking about like this grand prophecy that he's the chosen one and will be the glorious hero years from now. Like, oh my god, can we get any more self-inserty? Please give it a rest. This book honestly made me realize that 7 out of 10 times road trip stories just don't work for me. Because they just a lot of times feel like we're filling time during the middle portion of the story until we get where we're going and can get the plot back up again. I don't know, yeah, this book kind of made me realize that I don't really like a lot of road trip stories. Sometimes road trip stories can be a serve, but like quite a few times, more often than not, I don't really like them. So at least the book made me realize that. Now, because I'm realizing that that's a me thing, like that's a personal thing about me, I'm not going to count that specific thing against the book itself, because there's nothing inherently wrong with road trip stories, and, some people really like them. So that's not necessarily a negative about the book itself. What I will count against it is the villains, however, specifically their monologues. Oh my god. Nearly every fucking villain we come across just has to monologue to Percy before or after we fight. Like, why did that God of War guy just stop everything on the beach to start monologuing to Percy for? Girl, I don't even know how long he was monologuing. I read this on audio and it felt like a good like 5 minutes before that God of War guy finally shut up on the beach and like they started swinging their swords at each other finally. Like, oh my god, if it took so long to get through his monologue. Or like at the end when Luke, I think is his name, unsurprisingly turned out to be evil, he just started monologuing about wanting revenge against the gods and how he came to serve Kronos, and Kronos will purify the world, and how Percy can't stop him. Wahaha. Like, oh my god, shut up. If you want him to join the dark side, just say that already. It was just so annoying and felt like it honestly just felt like we hit the pause button on the story at any given moment. And also, why did we need the villains to monologue their big evil plans that will like come forth in the next books instead of like having our main three characters discover what's going on by themselves? I don't know, I hated it. Also, I'm gonna say this book has not really aged well. Like, why is the one Muslim presenting character secretly Medusa in disguise? Why is the one bigger character secretly an evil villain with a demon hellhound in disguise? Why is it that every character who is a villain in the story is described as not normal? There was literally a sentence at one point, I think it was when they were like in Vegas and they were going to like that arcade place that like displaced people, time travel shit. I don't exactly know what that place was about. We didn't really delve into it all that much. Maybe it's delved more into the next few books. I don't know. I don't care. But anyway, there was literally a sentence at that part of the book where Percy is like, "Oh, we could be walking into another trap, but this guy at the front door looks normal, so I don't think we're in any danger." Like, what? So you admit that all the villains are not normal looking. Muslims, big people, old people, bald people, black people. We just had to point out things about all the villains in disguise that apparently makes them not normal. Now look, I don't know anything about Rick Riordan. Maybe he's grown and changed since this book was published. Let's hope. I don't know. And I'm not calling for like my three viewers to rise up and cancel him over a 20-year-old book. Let's be serious for a moment. Like, no. I'm just complaining about things I didn't like about this book, and I didn't like the fact that almost every antagonist the kids faced was either described as ugly, a person of color, or both. And nearly every good person here was a white person that fit, the Eurocentric beauty standards. And I say that as a white person that, some people consider to fit Eurocentric beauty standards. Like, I didn't like that. But who knows? Maybe, Rick Riordan has grown and changed since this book was published. I just based on the little bit that I know, he probably has. But I don't know. I don't know anything about the guy. So also, am I really supposed to be against the bad guys in this story? Now, hold on. Now look. Now look. I don't know much about Greek mythology. Thankfully, my school didn't really make us study it all that much, so I don't know if Kronos in the mythos really is a horrible being that, like, should never be resurrected or whatever. Like, all I know is that when Luke was going on his villain monologue at the end, I was kind of agreeing with him. I'm sorry, I was kind of agreeing with him. Like, we want to destroy the gods and bring down Western civilization so everything isn't so damn centered on the USA. Okay, let's do it, bestie. Like, what do you want me to say? All throughout this book, the gods have been nothing but unloving hoes that get people pregnant and then abandon them and their kids. Like, most of those half-blood kids have never met their Olympus parent, nor do they ever expect to. Like, huh? Where are the child support checks? Y'all are gods. I know you got money. So why is Percy being raised in a dumpy apartment? Why was Annabeth forced to run away and live in the wilderness for weeks at the age of 7 cause her mortal family didn't want her and her Olympus parent didn't give a damn about her either?
What was the reason?
I had a reason.
What was the
I
reason?
had a reason.
What was the reason?
I just explained the reason.
What was the reason, bitch?
I don't need to explain myself to you. And
What was the reason?
And we're just supposed to act like this is good and fine behavior? No! Fuck them 12 gods. Let's bring them on down. Come on now, let's resurrect Kronos and kill them bitches. I don't know. At the very least, if you're going to bang every attractive mortal you come across, the least you could do is either get protection or provide your family with nice living so they never have to struggle about anything. Like, that's just the bare minimum, and the gods can't even do that. But, like, I'm supposed to believe that, like, the gods are, like, good people and they're, like, heroes and shit, and it's, like, a bad thing if we bring them down. No, please. I don't know what happens in the rest of the series. Maybe, like, Kronos and his villain minions or whatever do some horrible, unforgivable acts that make me actually go like, oh, fine, fuck, we have to keep the gods around, fuck Kronos. But, like, I'm probably not going to continue with the series, so I really don't care. But, yeah, I just was not happy about this book at all, and I don't really understand why my generation says this is like an amazing childhood classic. Okay, look, if you went through a Greek god phase in middle school and also had a main character syndrome phase, I understand why you like this book, because you were the perfect audience for this story. But like everyone else that says this is amazing, I don't really understand y'all. Will I be continuing with the series? Absolutely not. I might watch the Disney Plus show because I am curious, and also I am a basic bitch that will check out most anything that gets a lot of buzz. But other than that, I'm done. I was curious, I checked it out, and now I'm good. I'm good. I don't need anything more. And now we move on to August. Here we are, besties. The first book that I read in August was Majesty by Catherine McGee. This young/new adult urban fantasy romance is the second book in the American Royal series. The series is basically what if instead of a president, the United States had a monarch, and follows the drama of America's royal family. This book specifically follows four women surrounding the White House. You've got the oldest daughter, Beatrice, who has just been crowned queen and is dealing with the responsibilities and struggles of being America's first female monarch, and also finding love within the storm. Then there is the sister, Princess Samantha, who has a reputation for being outspoken and impulsive and starts fake dating a duke to make her ex jealous, and then starts catching real feelings for the guy. Third is Nina, a close family friend of the Washingtons who used to date the prince, Prince Jefferson, but is now falling for his best friend Ethan instead. And finally, there's Daphne, a scheming gold digger who wants to marry Bees and Sam's brother, Prince Jefferson, because her and her family want to elevate their status in the world. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. Alright, so I read the first book years ago, and I thought it was like perfectly fine, even though I didn't feel like continuing it. But this year, I was watching a video by Kenya from the channel Lily Reads, and she made a video where she read this series, and while watching her video, I was like, maybe I should give this another try. I'm kind of getting interested in this. Like, maybe I should give this another try. So I thought I would continue this series after watching that video from her, and also my reading tastes have changed since 2019, so I thought I would love this. And I was right. I loved this book. And even though I'm giving it a 4 stars, I did add it to my 2023 favorites list. Like, it's just so fun and gossipy and chiclety. It reads like you're flipping through a celebrity news magazine, and then you can like turn to the person next to you at the hair salon and be like, oh my god, girl, do you remember that girl that Daphne was friends with? The one she made fall down a flight of stairs and put into a coma? Oh my god, yeah, I remember. What's the tea? Well, apparently that Mariko girl woke up from her coma and remembers what happened. So now Daphne is trying to come up with a plan to get rid of her permanently so she doesn't expose her gold digging ass. Oh my god, no way. Ooh, drama. Like, it reads like that. It's just so fun. It's unserious. I love stories that follow rich people and their rich people problems, and I will be reading the third and fourth books. Like, oh my god, I love this so much. I will say though, while it does like try to have some feminist themes, like Beatrice facing a lot of sexism and people within the government trying to like undermine her because she is, the first female monarch, and her gathering the strength to like tell people that are trying to like control her and undermine her to like fuck off, and like asserting her power as queen. There are some other moments when I felt like the book was a little pick me ish. Probably not the right word, but it's the closest thing I can think of right now. Like, Samantha and Marshall initially agree to start fake dating to make their exes jealous and want to get back together with them. But when Sam starts getting real feelings for Marshall and notices the plan is working with his ex wanting to get back together with him, she starts demonizing the other girl at every turn and being like, oh my god, she's so fake. You can just tell she's one of those airhead actresses that do nothing but star in trashy TV shows and post on Insta all day long. I've never met her, but she wants my man, so I hate her guts and wouldn't even spit on her if she was on fire. Like, moments like that were just weird, and it happened just enough for me to drop this book down a star. But other than that, I really love this, and I'm excited to read what happens next. Next up, Husband Material by Alexis Hall. This is the sequel to Boyfriend Material that I read back in June, and you heard me talk about earlier in this video. In this one, Luke and Oliver have now been together for 2 years and are happy in their relationship. But with everyone around them, friends, co-workers, enemies, etc., all getting married and settling down, Luke starts feeling the social pressure to do so also. So he hastily asks Oliver to marry him, and the book follows their engagement process as they try to plan a wedding that neither of them are really feeling, but they just can't bring themselves to tell the other that, even though they love the other person, they don't really want to get married right now. And, the toll that that whole thing takes on their relationship and how they have to eventually figure that out. I gave this a 3.5, which, if you remember that I gave Boyfriend Material a 4.5, you can do the math and know that this is a whole star lower, unfortunately. Let me say this. Let me say this first of all. If you're looking for a cute, fluffy romance where the couple is planning their like dream wedding and everything is great and the biggest conflict is like whether the cake should be vanilla or chocolate, this isn't the book for you. Just read the first one and let it be a standalone for you, okay? Now, if you're like me, on the other hand, and you just enjoy following these messy ass emotional disasters that are these two guys, and they're equally melodramatic friends and family, you'll probably like this, at least parts of it. A lot of people on Goodreads hated this book and said it like ruined the first one for them actually. But honestly, for me, I did have fun with this and I enjoyed it. Of course, my rating is like a 3.5, so I have some issues with it, but in general, I thought it was fine and am looking forward to the next one. My main issue with this book is that I think it could have been a lot better and it could have done a lot more character exploration than what it did. This novel severely needed to be told from Oliver's point of view instead of Luke's, or at the very least, have dual POV between him and Luke. Because I think a lot of the issues about this book stem from being in Luke's head 24/7, when most of the big character struggles and arc is about Oliver. Boyfriend Material unpacked a lot of Luke's issues with himself and his family and helped him heal from a lot of that trauma. And in the later section of that book, it gives us some peeks into Oliver's struggles with family and self image that I felt like were being set up to be explored deeper in this book. That didn't happen, honestly. And again, a big reason for that is it needed to be told from Oliver's point of view. Because while some things that he struggles with, such as homophobic parents whose expectations are impossible to meet, and his feelings of distance from the queer community, are explored deeper in this book, I felt like they could have been tackled a lot better if we weren't in Luke's head all the damn time. And other things such as Oliver's ED and body image issues are just glossed over entirely and only mentioned in passing a few times, when the story is like, yeah, he got a therapist to deal with his shit. Like, what? Just nothing felt like it was explored as well as it could have been, and we don't really get new developments with Luke to make up for it, because, again, most of his problems were confronted and resolved in the first book. Also, I will say the whole rainbow balloon fight that just kept popping up again and again and again in this book went on for way too long. Basically, Luke and Oliver keep butting heads on the aesthetic of their wedding, with Luke wanting a very queer, almost Pride Month looking wedding with like rainbow everything, while Oliver wants a very formal, traditional wedding with like the church and, pastel colors and all that everything, whatever the straight people do for their traditional weddings. That's what Oliver wants. This keeps escalating into fights about if whether Oliver's insistence that everything be the way you'd see it done at a traditional straight wedding is a sign of some internalized homophobia learned from his parents. I have issues with this for multiple reasons, and so did a lot of other people on Goodreads. For me personally, this goes on forever. One or two times that this argument happens, sure, I can see the vision somewhat. But to keep bringing it up throughout the entire book, and never with any new commentary from either side, just them continuing to bicker and use the same arguments to defend their point over and over again, is just tiring. Okay, so Ollie wants things more traditional. So what? Like, why are we trying to forcibly make the fact that he doesn't want everything to be draped in rainbows into a sign of internalized homophobia? Just compromise and blend the two aesthetics instead of trying to, like, make it this big moral debate and, like, pick one or the other. Like, just blend the two aesthetics. It doesn't fucking matter. Who cares? See, both sides make decent arguments to defend their stance on why Ollie feels an inherent distance from the LGBTQ plus community, but since the story is told exclusively from Luke's point of view and he isn't willing to meet in the middle and realize he might be a little wrong here, while Oliver is willing to do that and meet in the middle, it almost makes it feel like the narrative is taking Luke's side in all this, and that this is just some internalized homophobia on Oliver's part, while completely ignoring the valid points that Oliver brought up, such as feeling weirded out about the commercialization of queerness, especially at the hands of big corporations with CEOs that hate us anyway. And D, we're getting into spoilers for the ending here, whatever. This book takes so much time to have this moral debate, but then drops the bombshell at the end that the reason Oliver doesn't really want to get married either is because he sees marriage as a very straight person thing, and it feels like it's something that just isn't meant for him as a gay man. And the book never addresses that and latches onto the idea that, like, hey, that what you just said, that is actually some internalized homophobia. Like, how are you going to spend all this time acting like this man has self-acceptance issues because he doesn't want a rainbow balloon arch at the reception of his wedding, or like takes issue with the effect capitalism has taken on the community? But when he literally says, oh, I've been brought up to see marriage as a thing between a man and a woman, so I feel like I can never take part in marriage because I'd be a man marrying another man. Like, how are you just gonna, like, write that down and then you're just gonna act like that's a normal thing to say and not an actual toxic idea learned from his parents? Huh? 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 But yeah, that's my big problem, and probably a lot of people's problem with this book, even if they don't realize it, that it tries to tackle Oliver's problems with family and self-image and whatever else, but never gives us his side of the coin. It only tells the story from Luke's point of view. It's trying to be a story about Oliver, but it doesn't tell it from Oliver's POV. Like, that's the problem with this book. Ugh. It never tells us what he feels or thinks about anything unless he directly says it out loud, like with his monologue speech at his father's funeral about, his rocky relationship with his dad and parents and upbringing, like that, like it only gives us his side of the story and how he's feeling about all of this and everything that the book tries to tackle when he directly says it out loud. Like, we're never in his head to actually, tackle all this stuff that we're trying to tackle properly. Having said that, I do still like the cast of characters, especially the best friend Bridget, and I do want to follow their wacky asses around for more adventures. And I do like the idea of the wedding, with Luke and Oliver deciding not to get married since neither of them are thrilled at the idea of marriage and just wanted to find their love on their own terms. But I don't really like how we arrived at that point. It did feel like kind of rushed, honestly. And we could have explored that point a lot better, honestly. But, I like some things about this book. I hated some other things about this book. So, yeah, 3.5 from me. Will I read Father material when it comes out next year? Yes, I will, even though I do think it could be a rehash of this book just based on the ending here. But who knows? I really just love the characters. That's what it comes down to. The next book that I read in August was Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. Think Golden Girls, but make them assassins. This adult thriller is about four older women who have made a career out of killing evil people across the world. Now they are retiring, and the organization they work for is sending them on an all expenses paid vacation to celebrate their 40 years of service. Until the organization tries to assassinate them suddenly. Now on the run, the four old broads have to figure out why the organization wants them dead and how to survive a deadly game of cat and mouse so that they can clear their names of whatever wrongdoing they've been accused of. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this, to be honest. It was fun, it kept me invested, it was kinda camp, honestly, and I really enjoyed the ride and the banter between these older gals. This book wants to be a fun, fast paced page turner book, and that's exactly what it is. It doesn't take itself too seriously or try to be too deep. What really sold it for me, though, was the main quartet. I could really feel the 40 years worth of bonding, friendship, and life or death trust between these women in every caring word and every snide remark that they made against each other. Even when they were pissed off at each other, you could still feel that they all loved each other at the end of the day, and I really enjoyed their dynamic. This book is a 3.8 though, so it does have some flaws, namely in the character works department. While the dialogue, action, and lore behind the assassination organization known as the Museum were all great, I had trouble truly connecting to any of the characters. Yes, I had fun with the four old broads and their two sidekicks that they brought along the way, but I loved them all on a surface level, not anything deeper. And all the more minor side characters were extremely forgettable, in my opinion. So much so that I forgot they existed almost instantly after they left the page and had to actively try to remember who was who when some of them popped back up at the end. And since I'm someone that loves characters, yeah, it took a big hit on how much I was able to love this book. But overall, I had a lot of fun and really enjoyed the ride. I saw a few people on Goodreads speculate that there could be a sequel, but honestly, I don't think this book needs it and is instead perfectly fine as a standalone. Also, I really enjoyed the narrators for this book because I did listen to it on audio. The lady who narrated the past spy mission chapters really captured that vibe and set the tone perfectly for those sections. And the lady who voiced the present day chapters did an excellent job of giving life to a group of older, crotchety assassins that have seen it all. So, yeah, I really liked it. And the final book that I read in August and the final book of this video is actually a reread. So I reread Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston in August. Yes, I reread it after the movie came out, just cause, I wanted to. To be honest, I used my Audible credit on husband material and finished it within 2 days, so I was still in the mood for a gay romance novel, so I listened to this again. It's still a 5 out of 5 stars and a favorite read of the year. Like, I don't know what to tell y'all. I love this book. I'll be honest, I'm glad I reread this because I got more out of it than before, which is always nice. And I don't know why, but there were some things, particularly towards the end, that I just like straight up misremembered or forgot happened. So it was nice to go back and refresh my memory on like what actually happened towards the end with certain characters and motivations. Overall, I'm still obsessed with this book and the movie and would totally be here for a sequel if the author ever wanted to write one, which they kind of hinted that they're thinking about it during a Q&A on Threads. So, yay, I'd be here for it. Now, what do I plan on reading in September? First, I'd like to finish Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I started it halfway through August and thought I'd love it enough to finish it by the end of the month, but, yeah, that didn't happen. Honestly, my favorite parts are when it starts talking about people and events from the original Grisha trilogy. Don't kill me, I know everyone raves about this book, but I'm just not feeling it right now. As of recording, I'm almost like to the part where they actually commit the heist at the ice court, and maybe once that part happens and I like read that part, maybe like something will trigger and like I'll like instantly fall in love with this book. Like who knows? But for right now, I'm just not really feeling it. Like, it's fine, but it's not something I'm in love with. Anyway. After that, I've also started Suns Will Rise by Jessica Brody and Joanne Rundell, the final book in the System Divine series. I know I will not finish this book by the end of September because it's long as hell. Like, it's 700 pages. Girl. I understand why it's 700 pages, but, like, it's long as hell. So that book will be a secondary read until I finish it in like October, November, whatever. But I'm super excited to start reading this book because I gave the first two books in the series 5-star each. So yeah, hopefully we can go 3 for 3 and give the whole trilogy 5 stars. After that is my Audible credit, and to be honest, I'm kind of debating on what to use my Audible credit on this month. The first option is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas, the second book in the ACOTAR series, and I kind of want to make a video on it because I feel like I'll have a lot of stuff to say about it, but I don't know if I will or not. I don't know. The second option is Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Wilsoner, which is about a woman who accidentally sleeps with her roommate's mom and the drama that ensues after that. I love stories about mess and drama, especially between friends and family, so I'd really like to get that at some point. I don't know. Y'all will find out later which I decide to use my Audible credit on for this month, but yeah, those are my two options right now. And finally, I'm hoping Five Survive by Holly Jackson will finally be available at my library soon, because I've placed a hold on it, and, you know, it's been since July. So I'm hoping that will be available soon. I loved her A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, so I really want to read her next book, and it should be available any day now as of making this video, so fingers crossed, let's hope. But that's it from me. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I make videos covering stories in books, shows, movies, and occasionally video games. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.